The general's hand froze halfway to the coffee cup. His jaw tightened, his pen clattered silently to the polished oak table. No one spoke. Every officer in the room felt the sudden, invisible shift in the air. Their eyes darted toward the young woman standing quietly at the edge of the briefing table, a tray of steaming cups balanced with practiced steadiness in her hands. It wasn't the coffee. It wasn't the way she moved. It was the patch stitched onto her sleeve. A symbol not seen in years, one that whispered of sacrifice, of blood spilled in silence, of a battle that had never truly ended. The general's voice trembled as he asked himself, though he did not dare speak aloud, "What is she doing here? Wearing that?" She looked too young, almost out of place amid the rows of hardened officers with weathered faces, medals gleaming, and lines carved by decades of duty. She carried herself with quiet discipline, yet there was no rank insignia on her chest, no indication she belonged in this room. To the untrained eye, she was a runner, an assistant, perhaps a clerk sent to bring coffee to men whose names carried weight in corridors of power. Yet, her silence had gravity. Her stillness commanded attention in a way no shouted order ever could. They saw a server, but one man saw the patch. And that changed everything. Her name was known only to a few in that room. Years earlier, she had been a combat medic in one of the harshest deployments the military had ever undertaken. Dust storms and smoke had been her companions, screams in the night her lullaby. She had treated wounds with trembling hands but unshakable resolve, pressing bandages against arteries, whispering courage into the ears of young men who wouldn't live to see another dawn. She had been 21 when she carried her closest friend across a battlefield, half her own body burned from the fire that swallowed their convoy. The world had told her she should not have survived. Doctors told her she would never wear the uniform again. And yet here she stood, quiet, unassuming, bearing scars hidden beneath the camouflage sleeves that clung to her skin. Her arm bore the mark of a unit, long disbanded, a patch reserved for those who had endured a mission buried in silence, classified beyond ordinary clearance. To the uninitiated, it looked like just another insignia, but to those who knew, it was a symbol of impossible survival. And survival, she had learned, was its own kind of rebellion. But the room did not see her story. They saw only a girl with a tray. One officer, sharp-eyed and dismissive, leaned back in his chair, whispering just loud enough for others to hear. Even in briefings, "They send us waitresses now." A ripple of low laughter moved around the table, brittle, cruel, the kind of laughter that hides insecurity beneath mockery. She said nothing. Her hands did not tremble. She set the coffee down gently, one cup at a time, her silence cutting deeper than any retort. The general did not laugh. His gaze lingered on her sleeve, tracing the lines of the patch as if he were staring at a ghost. She moved with quiet efficiency, ignoring the smirks, ignoring the dismissive eyes. The tray grew lighter with each cup placed on the table, but the weight on her shoulders was immeasurable. The men around her shifted uncomfortably. They could not explain why their chuckles faltered when her eyes, steady and calm, met theirs for a moment longer than necessary. There was something unsettling about that gaze, like staring into the depth of trenches where laughter had no place. No one spoke of the patch, but they all saw it now. The pilot seated near the end of the table, the one who had first noticed, tightened his grip on his pen. He knew that insignia. He had flown missions overhead, while soldiers on the ground bore it into the fire. He remembered the radio call signs, the desperate requests for air support, the moments when the only thing separating survival from annihilation was whether someone answered. And she had been there. He was sure of it. When the last cup was placed before the general, she did not leave. She stood still, tray against her side, as if waiting for something unseen. Her silence demanded recognition. The general finally spoke, not to her, but to the room. "Do you know what that patch means?" The laughter stilled entirely. No one answered. His voice grew heavy, deliberate. It belongs to the unit that never broke. Not once. Not when they were outnumbered. Not when reinforcements never came. Not when the ground beneath them turned to fire. The men shifted in their seats, discomfort washing over the room like a storm cloud. She wore that patch when most of us were safe behind walls. And some of you dare laugh at her presence here? His words sliced the silence. The young woman lowered her eyes, but not in shame and humility. She had no need to explain herself. Her scars, her silence, her patch, they spoke louder than any defense ever could. One by one, the officers rose. Chairs scraped against the floor, hesitant at first, then resolute. They did not rise for the general. They did not rise for protocol. They rose for her. The woman who had walked into their briefing as a coffee bearer now stood taller than any star pinned to a shoulder. The general extended his hand not to dismiss her, but to honor her. She did not take it. Instead, she saluted with quiet precision, then turned and walked toward the door. And as she left, every man in that room remained standing. The patch on her sleeve gleamed faintly in the daylight, its shadow stretching across the floor like the echo of battles fought in silence. Long after she was gone, the room remained hushed. Coffee cooled in untouched cups, documents lay ignored on the table. What mattered was not the agenda, nor the strategies drawn on paper. What mattered was the unspoken lesson she had carried into the room with nothing more than silence and a patch. Respect is not demanded. It is lived. It is worn quietly by those who bear scars the world may never see. And sometimes, the strongest voice in a room is the one that never speaks at all. Some heroes never ask for recognition. They don't wear their honor for applause. They wear it because it is part of who they are, stitched into their very being. And when we dismiss them, mock them, or overlook them, we dishonor not just one, but all who carried that burden with them. Wherever you are watching from, pause and reflect. Who in your life carries silent battles, invisible scars, or quiet strength? Comment below where you're tuning in from. Share this story if it moved you. And subscribe for more stories that honor the unseen heroes, who remind us that dignity, respect, and sacrifice never fade.